sure Moses had people in his life, David had people in his life that said, man, how are you going to attack that thing? How are you going to face this giant? How are you going to face this obstacle without God? You know, without God, they couldn't have done anything. So that's just another example of how God showed faithful. And my last example I have in point C is we often focus on our resources rather than God's resources. So in Judges, it talks about Gideon, and I don't know if you guys know about Gideon's army, but Gideon started with an army of 32,000, and it continued to dwindle and dwindle as people got scared. They felt like they couldn't make it. They felt like the army they were coming up against wasn't strong enough, wasn't enough to take on what they were facing. Until it got to a point where they say it's roughly about 300 men. And kind of, it reminds me of the movie 300, just where there's 300 Spartans, but it wasn't Spartans in the Bible, but 300 Spartans kind of going against a huge army. And they use different type of resource. They use, you know, a cliff on one side and a hill on the other side. They use tactics to do it. But in this case, it's even a greater victory because it says they just went head up with an army. And God kind of pushed them through it even regardless of that. And the numbers are pretty crazy just because it says it was roughly about, for each one of Gideon's men, they had to kill or defeat 400 of the other army. So for each one man, that's equivalent to each of you having to face 400 people on your own. I mean, the odds it's more than just the odds being against you. That's a no-win situation. And yet, God still gave them the victory in spite of it. And so, for me, that story alone was just really big to me as well. Just in that in general, you know, and just the little mountains that you guys face. You know, we talk about these guys and we say, whoa, you know, like that's the Bible time. You know, they're not facing what we have to face, but we have to understand with us that we have a living God that's in us, that's living, moving through us on a daily basis. And they didn't have that ability. They didn't until the Holy Spirit came in the New Testament, they didn't have God with them at all times unless they had the ark with them. You know, and we have something even greater than they did in the fact that we have God in us at all times. And I know it's easy to kind of lose sight of it, and it's easy to say, well, that's David, or that's Gideon, or that's Moses, and that's why they pushed through the obstacle. That's why they made it through that step. But God is saying, no, look to me, and you'll find that rest. You'll find that ability to get past, to conquer that giant, to conquer that thing that you're facing, that obstacle that's in your way. You know, for me, for a long time, I couldn't even stand up in front of people. Like, I couldn't, you know, Christian would ask me to talk on a mic years ago, and I'd be like, I